From the CNN Center in Atlanta, I'm Bob Losure with the latest headline news. It's now just a wet storm crossing the Great Lakes region, but for thousands of people in North Carolina and Virginia, Fran is a natural disaster. On North Carolina's barrier islands, many residents returned home for the first time Saturday to find their homes reduced to timbers or muddy lakes filling their living rooms. Hundreds of thousands across the East Coast remain without power. Hurricane Fran roared ashore in North Carolina Thursday night with winds of more than 100 miles an hour. 22 people have died since then in 5 states. Fran's storm path did not end at the coastline. It also brought high winds and flooding rains to the Virginias. Paul Karen has more.
Hurricane Fran drenched an already saturated state, swelling rivers way over their banks. Virginia Governor George Allen toured areas damaged by the floodwaters with FEMA Director James Lee Witt. An area here in Danville known as Lucktown was extremely unlucky as a church was filled with muck and suffered severe water damage. One house appeared to be lifted right off its foundation and destroyed. Director Witt has seen reports of Fran damage in other states the past few days, but even this for him was startling.
I was amazed at the water, the height of that water that was in those homes that we visited a while ago. One house was sitting on top of a hill that water got all the way up to, as the lady told me, in her dresser drawers. You know, I mean, that was just incredible.
The Dan River crested early Saturday morning, 7 feet beyond its flood stage, washing out nearby roads.
I just talked to him. I told him to turn around and come back.
Minor flooding is a yearly ritual here with rain runoff from the hills, but this flooding is worsened by heavy summer rains plus Hurricane Fran.
As long as the river keeps moving, water keeps going out, the crest comes behind it, the side creeks that were flooded during this hurricane, and a lot of trees and debris are in there are breaking loose and letting a lot of water come off that nobody knows it's there. That affects us also, so it's kind of like shooting at a moving target.
The water crept up to businesses. It made this gas station island truly an island. Furniture store owner Larry Cole nervously watched workers seal up the back of his store, hoping against the worst.
There'd be extensive damage throughout the store because of the carpet and everything. We'd be out of business for several weeks.
It stopped some residents from using their cars.
This is the only way I can get out right here.
More than 200,000 residents were still without power in Virginia Saturday. And the memory of Hurricane Fran could still be heard as chainsaws continue to cut through the downed trees. Paul Karen, CNN, Danville, Virginia.
There's a new tropical troublemaker in the Caribbean. Residents are battening down the hatches again, this time for Tropical Storm Hortense, expected to become a hurricane on Sunday. At last report, Hortense had moved past the French island of Guadeloupe with maximum sustained winds of about 65 miles an hour. It's moving west-northwest at 10 miles an hour. A hurricane warning is up for the British and U.S. Virgin Islands. A hurricane watch remains in effect for Puerto Rico. Firefighters working to tame an 18,000-acre wildfire in Montana's Custer National Forest say that calmer winds gave them the break they needed Saturday. They say they've reached a turning point in controlling it. Some residents evacuated Wednesday have now been allowed to return. 37 homes in the area have been destroyed by the fire. It was sparked by lightning 13 days ago. In Florida, one mechanic was killed, another injured when the landing gear of a Navy jet collapsed. The EA-6B Prowler was being towed for repairs. One mechanic was crushed by the jet's left wing. Another broke his leg when he was hit by part of the broken landing gear. Divers could resume searching for the wreckage from TWA Flight 800 sooner than expected. They had thought the rough seas churned up by Hurricane Fran would not permit it before Monday, but the seas are calming faster than expected. Now there's a concern that some wreckage may have been buried in sand that was stirred up by Hurricanes Fran and Edouard. And Susan Candiotti explains the investigation already requires some grueling work.
The way Safety Board investigator Frank Hildrup gets around on the job should not make you think the work's not intense.
The eyes of the country and really of the world are on us, and there's a certain amount of pressure there, but we don't need that pressure to do our job.
Beginning to worry about the structural integrity of the whole thing.
Between them, Hildrup and Bob Benson have 20 years of experience investigating crashes.
To us, it's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle, but we don't have the box top to look at.
Ever since the TWA 747 exploded, taking 230 lives, this hangar has virtually been their home.
The answer to this accident is either in the hangar over there or on the bottom of the sea, and we'll find it.
About 30 NTSB investigators are in that hangar, compared to hundreds of FBI agents on the case. The work can be overwhelming. It can be frustrating, even for seasoned investigators who regularly travel around the country and the world, taking on the role of a detective. This year alone, Hildrop has worked on 2 other disasters involving water searches. ValueJet in the Florida Everglades, and a charter that nosedived into the Atlantic off the Dominican Republic.
I think whenever kids are involved, that's the toughest part.
For this father of 2, seeing TWA's aftermath hit home.
Burning debris at night on the water, and then the next day seeing bodies being recovered from the water. That's a terrible sight.
Even worse would be failing to crack the case. At the safety board, that's rare, but 2 tragedies remain unsolved. Here in Pittsburgh 2 years ago, and in Colorado Springs in 1991. Hildrop worked on both. Benson and TWA lead investigator Al Dickinson supervised Colorado. TWA, they insist, will be different. Bomb, missile, or mechanical failure. Does your gut lean you in any one direction at this point?
It does, but I can't discuss that, sorry.
If it turns out to be sabotage, Bob Benson brings Pan Am 103 to the table. He worked on that terrorism case in Scotland.
You get to put on the Sherlock Holmes hat once in a while, and eventually we'll figure this one out.
And if they can, prevent a similar disaster from happening. Susan Candiotti, CNN, Calverton, New York.
In Japan, Okinawans are voting on what they'd like the future of the U.S. military presence there to be. Sunday's referendum comes in the wake of heightened anti-U.S. sentiment on the island, a year after 3 American GIs raped a 12-year-old girl. The vote on whether the 30,000-strong U.S. force there should be reduced is not legally binding. The U.S. bases are Okinawa's second largest source of revenue after tourism. Jack Kevorkian is assisted in the suicide of a California woman 1 day after police raided a meeting between them. Kevorkian's lawyer says the retired pathologist was present at the death of 60-year-old Isabel Correa. Friday, police burst in on Correa and Kevorkian as they talked at a suburban Detroit hotel. Kevorkian's lawyer says Correa had a spinal cord disorder that caused constant pain. After the police raid, Correa said she had come to Michigan to die. It is Kevorkian's 40th known assisted suicide since 1990. Republican presidential nominee Bob Dole campaigned in Pennsylvania Saturday. It's his 3rd visit there in 2 weeks. Polls show him trailing far behind President Clinton in the state. Dole emphasized his economic plan, which calls for a 15% income tax cut and pledged to help those who work at home. President Clinton used his weekend radio address to call on the Senate to ratify the Chemical Weapons Ban Treaty. It was signed in 1993 and must still be ratified by 5 of the 65 countries. This week, a presidential advisory panel announced that as many as 1,100 U.S. troops were exposed to nerve gas when they destroyed an Iraqi chemical weapons depot in 1991. Well, in these days of political mudslinging, scandal, and low public opinion of politicians, would any parent want their son or daughter to grow up to be president? Jim Angle reports the answer is yes.
Before they can even get their eyes open, babies' parents are already thinking about their children's future. And what higher aspiration could parents have than that someday their sons and daughters might be president?
I wouldn't mind it at all because I think he would be able to make some changes.
I wouldn't mind her being president.
Why?
So she could probably get some things done right.
But that feeling that things haven't been done right is taking a toll. Many still believe that anyone can be president in America, but now more people are wondering why anyone would want to.
I wouldn't want that for any of my kids. The world is too scary right now.
Most people agree. When CNN asked parents if they would like their child to grow up to be president, a whopping 61% said no. Only 37% said yes.
First of all, he probably get blamed for a lot of things that weren't really his problem, and I don't want to make any promises he can't keep.
American presidents were once revered. FDR's steadfast leadership through a depression and a war, Truman's courage, Eisenhower, the war hero, and Kennedy, the Camelot president. But an assassination, a war in Vietnam, the Watergate scandal, and the hostages in Iran made the presidency seem less desirable, as much a burden as an honor. Ultimately, of course, it doesn't matter what parents think. What about the kids? None that we talked to mentioned president first. Sasha wants to be a veterinarian, but would consider the presidency.
So I could help the cats and give them homes.
Of course, cats don't vote, at least in most states, so this campaign is off to a slow start. One boy wouldn't hear of the presidency. He wants to be a pool man, but his brother is ready and even has a platform.
You want to be president?
Want to be president?
Yes.
Okay.
Where's the money?
Obviously not a supporter of campaign finance reform. But for some kids, the president just isn't powerful enough.
I want to be a Power Ranger.
And with the world as complicated as it